The tarot deck is infested with planets. Some of these are straightforward. The Sun is staring you in the face, and Venus has left graffiti on the Empress's furniture. It's a bit like a police raid where everyone's wearing name badges. Others are a bit more obscure. Mars has broken into the tower and blown the roof off. Jupiter is operating an enormous cosmic fruit machine. Saturn has declared himself ruler of the entire world, and the moon isn't the moon. And behind those planets are the ancient gods who gave them their personalities. An airborne busybody, a newborn cattle rustler, a pub hard man who runs crying to his dad, and a family business owner who eats all his employees. So how did this collection of deplorables end up in the tarot? Well, before the modern planets arrived and made the paperwork even worse, astrologers worked with 7 wandering lights: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury and the Moon. The Sun and Moon counted as planets because they moved across the sky, while the Earth didn't because everybody was standing on it. The Golden Dawn took these 7 planets and gave them a tarot card each, so today we're going to drag those planets out from behind the cards, meet the deeply unstable gods responsible for them, and discover why the world belongs to Saturn, the tower belongs to Mars, and the Moon belongs absolutely everywhere except the bloody Moon. First up, let's do a card where the planet isn't hiding at all, so YouTube can complain that the thumbnail and the video don't match. Again. The Sun is ruled by the Sun. You can tell because it's got the Sun on it. This one isn't exactly hiding because it's a bit difficult to lurk in the shadows when you're the Sun. You tend to create the shadows for everyone else to lurk in. The ancient Greek god of the Sun was Helios, whose entire job involved driving the same route to work every morning and snitching on everybody. Each day he crossed the sky in a golden chariot drawn by 4 horses. Spectacular, unless you're standing in the flight path and you end up getting crapped on. In any case, he was a bit of a nosy Parker who spied on everyone. In fact, it was Helios who spotted Aphrodite having an affair with Eris and then went and told her husband. So he was basically the neighbourhood curtain twitcher and gossip merchant. But that's why he's the perfect planet for this one. The Sun card is all about shining the light of consciousness into all the dark places. It represents joy, confidence, success and seeing things as they really are. Under the Sun nothing stays hidden, not the truth, not your potential, and not whatever you're getting up to in that alley, while divine horseshit rains down on you. And while we're on the subject of Aphrodite, Venus is the ruler of the Empress card, because of course she is, and once again she hasn't made much of an effort to hide it. There's the symbol of Venus displayed on a large heart-shaped shield right next to her. If indeed it is a shield. I always thought it was one of those crap heart-shaped cushions you see in all the pound shops before Valentine's Day. In any case, it's there for all to see. It's the divine equivalent of going into witness protection but keeping your personalised number plate. The Roman Venus was based largely on the Greek goddess Aphrodite, who was responsible for love, beauty, desire and turning a perfectly pleasant wedding into an international conflict. This was all started by the most famous wedding crasher and troublemaker of all time, Eris, goddess of discord.
All hail Eris! All hail Discordia!
That should keep the conspiracy nuts busy. People already think I'm the Antichrist. Now they can think I'm the leader of the Illuminati as well. Anyway, Eris had her arse in her hand because she didn't get invited to a wedding, having brought a new hat and everything. So she decided to cause mayhem by writing "for the fairest" on a golden apple and chucking it into the hoedown, right where Hera, Athena and Aphrodite were dancing round their handbags. This kicked up a bit of a stink, with all 3 claiming the apple was obviously theirs. Zeus got fed up of listening to the 3 of them screeching at each other, so he dragged in a Trojan shepherd called Paris to declare who was the fairest. Not entirely sure why. It's a bit like having Kim Kardashian, Sydney Sweeney and Sabrina Carpenter all turn up to the village fete, then getting Darren the DJ to decide who's the fittest.
I'm the fittest.
No, I'm the fittest.
No, I'm the fittest. I'm down here.
Oh yeah, sorry. Now Paris was open to a spot of bribery. Hera offered him power, Athena offered him wisdom, Aphrodite offered him Helen of Sparta, wife of King Menalius. Paris considered this and eventually said, "I think I'll take the married woman please, because that's not going to cause any problems, is it?" And so began 10 years of conflict, slaughter and carnage, all over an apple and a shepherd who couldn't keep his dick in his trousers. In any case, that's the power Venus brings to the Empress: attraction, desire, pleasure and abundance. Everything around her is either growing, flowing or looking expensive. She doesn't need to chase anything because she creates the conditions that draw everything towards her. But the Empress also comes with a warning. Pleasure can become indulgence, self-worth can become pride, and passion can get you into all kinds of trouble. Venus is very good at attracting whatever the heart desires. Just make sure it isn't someone else's wife. Next up we've got the Moon, which does not rule the card called the Moon. You know, like how the sun rules the sun? Well, that's not the case here. We dealt with that particular administrative catastrophe in our video about Tarot and the Zodiac. The Moon card is actually ruled by Pisces, what with it having a lobster on it and everything. So today we're asking a different question. Where did the Moon actually go? Well, it turns out she moved down the road to the High Priestess card, and to be fair, you wouldn't exactly call this one clandestine either. YouTube's going to have a field day with my analytics, but don't worry, they do start to get a bit more hidden after this one. Anyway, there's actually more moons on the High Priestess than there is on the Moon card. It's like a lunar jamboree. She's got one down at her feet. Apparently that one makes her the woman of the apocalypse, so you don't want to get on the wrong side of her. Then she's got another 3 moons on her hat, representing the waxing, full and waning phases, often described as the maiden, the mother and the crone. So that's the one taking selfies, the one who hasn't slept properly for 6 months, and the old lady banging into you with a shopping trolley because you're blocking the reduced section. The Greek personification of the moon was Selene, who fell desperately in love with a shepherd called Endymion. Shepherds seem to be getting all the action this week. Anyway, Selene was a bit upset at the thought of Endymion growing old and dying, what with him being mortal and everything, so she asked Zeus for help. He fixed it so that he would never age. The only bummer is that he would also be asleep forever, not even getting up to go to the toilet. Which admittedly sounds pretty good at my age. In any case, he stayed young, handsome and permanently unconscious. Selene came to visit him every night, and together they managed to produce 50 daughters. I'd be interested to know what kind of dreams he was having. Anyway, this bizarre story brings us straight back to the High Priestess. The moon governs night, dreams, intuition and the unconscious. Everything that continues moving beneath the surface while the rational mind is asleep. The High Priestess guards that hidden world behind the veil, where not everything can be seen or clearly explained. And apparently where you can father 50 children without waking up. Next we've got Mercury hiding inside the Magician, and this time there isn't a massive planetary symbol giving the game away. Instead we have a very confident man standing behind a table covered with assorted magical tools, which is about as mercurial as it gets. The Greek equivalent of Mercury was Hermes, messenger of the gods, patron of travellers, merchants, thieves and anyone who's ever sold anything on Facebook Marketplace. Hermes was born in the morning, invented the lyre by lunchtime and stole Apollo's cattle that evening. He disguised their tracks, hid the animals and then climbed back into his cradle pretending he was far too young to know anything about it. When Apollo eventually caught him, Hermes played the lyre so beautifully that Apollo agreed to swap the cattle for it. So Hermes stole a man's livestock and then persuaded him that getting it back constituted a fair exchange. He'd been alive for less than a day and he'd already invented music, fraud and customer service. That's the power Mercury brings to the magician: intelligence, communication and the ability to use whatever happens to be available. All 4 tarot suits are laid out on his table and he knows exactly what to do with them. At his best, the magician turns ideas into reality through skill and ingenuity. At his worst, he uses the same talents to manipulate, deceive and sell you back the same cattle he nicked off you that morning. Next up we've got Mars hiding in the tower. Now again, Mars doesn't appear explicitly on the card, but you can see the logic. If a tower's going to get destroyed, it's unlikely to be Mercury's fault. Unless he was planning on talking it to death. The Greek equivalent of Mars was Eros, god of violence and uncontrolled warfare. Not strategy or disciplined military action, that was Athena's department. Eros was more like the bloke who starts a fight in the pub, gets punched once and immediately calls the police. The gods themselves didn't particularly like him, which is an astonishing achievement when you consider that Olympus was populated almost entirely by kidnappers, adulterers and people who turn their enemies into shrubbery. In the Iliad, Ares joins the fighting at Troy until Athena helps the mortal hero Diomedes stick a spear into him. Ares lets out a scream as loud as thousands of men, runs straight back to Olympus and complains to his dad Zeus. Zeus responds by telling his own son that he's an annoying little shit and that he's sick of listening to him whinge. And that's the force Mars brings to the tower: conflict, rupture, and the sudden destruction of something that can no longer remain standing. At its best, the tower breaks apart a false or unstable structure so something better can eventually replace it. At its worst, it's uncontrolled rage, demolishing everything in reach because someone looked at it funny. Basically, it's what happens when Eris has had 6 pints, loses an argument, and starts kicking off with a pool cue. Next, we've got Jupiter hiding inside the Wheel of Fortune. There's still no obvious planetary symbol, but Jupiter is traditionally the planet of luck and opportunity, so naturally he's been put in charge of the enormous cosmic fruit machine. The Roman Jupiter was identified with the Greek god Zeus, ruler of Olympus, wielder of thunderbolts, and managing director of an organisation with an absolutely catastrophic HR record. After defeating the Titans, Zeus and his brothers divided up the universe by drawing lots. Zeus got the sky, Poseidon got the sea, and Hades got the underworld. It was essentially 3 brothers divvying up the family home. Zeus got the penthouse, Poseidon got the swimming pool, and Hades was sent to live in the cellar with all the dead people. And that's exactly why Jupiter belongs to the Wheel of Fortune. Zeus didn't earn the sky through careful planning or a rigorous interview process. His name came out of a celestial tombola. Jupiter represents growth, opportunity, good fortune, and those moments when life suddenly becomes much bigger than it was before. But the wheel never stops turning. The figures on one side are rising while the ones on the other are being thrown off. So today's magnificent opportunity can become tomorrow's spectacular balls up. Jupiter expands whatever it touches, including confidence, waistlines, egos, and unsecured debt. Finally, we come to Saturn, who has chosen to hide inside the world. The entire world. This feels less like an occult correspondence and more like the opening stages of a Bond villain's manifesto. The Roman Saturn was identified with the Greek god Cronus, who learnt that one of his children would eventually overthrow him. So every time his wife Rhea gave birth, Cronus swallowed the baby whole. It was his own unique approach to succession planning. You can't lose control of the family business if you eat everyone on the graduate scheme. Eventually, Rhea tricked him by wrapping a stone in a blanket instead of the infant Zeus. Kronos swallowed it because apparently chewing hadn't been invented yet, while Zeus grew up in hiding. He later returned, forced Kronos to regurgitate his brothers and sisters, and overthrew him anyway. So Kronos ate 5 children and a rock, lost his job, and probably gave himself the worst constipation in history. And when I say he swallowed a rock, I'm not talking about the gorgeous gemstones from Otter Spirit, with links and discount codes in the description. So that brings us to Saturn and the world, planet of time, limits, responsibility, and the consequences you've been desperately trying to avoid. At first, that seems like a miserable fit for the world, which represents fulfillment, success, and the completion of a long journey. But something can only become complete when it has a boundary. A project without limits carries on forever. Saturn is the deadline that forces you to stop calling the file final version 17 and actually upload the bastard.
That sounds oddly specific.
But what does it all mean?
So now we know that the sun is a gossip, Venus started a war, Mercury stole some cattle, Jupiter won the sky in a raffle, and the moon's boyfriend is going to die of shock when he finds out what he's been doing in his sleep. But apart from proving that most of the Greek gods would have been banned from Wetherspoons, what are we actually supposed to do with any of this? Well, the planetary correspondence doesn't replace the traditional meaning of the card. It tells you what force is operating underneath it. The card shows you the situation, the planet tells you what's happening inside it. So if the Empress appears, Venus can draw your attention towards what you're attracting or allowing to grow. If the Tower appears, Mars asks where decisive action is needed and whether something has reached the point where it can no longer remain standing. And if the World appears, Saturn asks what final boundary or miserable last-minute deadline will allow the work to become complete. This can be particularly useful when you're stuck on a card. Instead of just staring at it until your eyes start watering, identify the planet and ask what it's doing. But the planets also connect the cards to one another. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, so the Magician is linked to the Lovers and the Hermit. Venus rules Taurus and Libra, connecting the Empress to the Hierophant and Justice. Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius, which creates the slightly troubling family of the World, the Devil, and the Naked Woman pouring water everywhere. Suddenly the Major Arcana stops looking like 22 unrelated pictures and starts behaving like a network. Every card leads to a planet, every planet leads to its zodiac signs, and those signs lead back to other cards. It's an enormous celestial family tree where everything is connected to everything else. And as Greek mythology has already demonstrated, most of the family have slept with each other. Now, I mentioned that I was going to do this for the Minor Arcana last time, but then it occurred to me that those cards have got a zodiac sign and a planet, so I figured I'd better do the planets first. We're now ready to tackle the pip cards and find out why the Two of Pentacles is doing whatever the Two of Pentacles is doing. And so now that we know who rules the cards, it's time to say a big thank you to the people who rule the channel and keep this madness going. Members get tarot readings, Magick tutorials and early access. Click the link in the description if you'd like to see your name up there too. I'm off to get started on the Minor Arcana and have a small nervous breakdown. Take care of yourselves and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this cosmic game of hide and seek. May the sun illuminate your path, Jupiter turn the wheel in your favour, and Mercury stay away from your livestock. Until next time.